Hi, my name is Ray Cruzy, the ISU Extension Outreach Office of Dubuque County, and we are thrilled that you're here today learning a little bit about landscape pruning. Now, there's a few reasons why we would want to do pruning in our landscape. One is size control. An example here is this yew. Some folks prune yews to control their size and keep them a certain shape, and that leads us into another reason why we would want to prune in the landscape is for shaping. An example of that is scapulae pruning on apple trees. If you're looking for that specific pattern of the branches and things like that, that's another reason that we would want to prune. Another reason we would want to prune is for rejuvenation. So for example, if we had a dogwood shrub and we want to make that shrub, and say if it's getting a little older and large, we want to make it look fresh and renewed, we would do some rejuvenation pruning. Another thing that we would prune for in the landscape is for canopy management. So if we have an apple tree, sometimes we prune out some of the canopy in an apple tree to help encourage fruit production. A couple of the last reasons that we prune in our landscape, and I'm actually going to talk about right here, is for cleanup of dead material. So I'm just going to use a very simple bypass pruners, and here is a good example on this tree here. We have some dead material that we can prune off, and this helps us to reduce the amount of material that is detracting from the look of our plant as it sits in the landscape. So that is another reason that we prune in the landscape. You know, you might wonder, when is a good time to actually prune? And so for most plants in the landscape, especially trees and things like that, it is in the late winter to early spring before bud break. And so right now we're sitting here right at the early part of March, and so we're at a prime time to be pruning in the landscape. Now I'm going to talk about the last reason that we would want to prune, and that's what we're going to demonstrate here with this ornamental shade tree here, is for a corrective pruning cut. And why we're going to look for a corrective pruning cut here is because this tree is something that is designed to be in layers. So we have one layer of branches here, we have another layer of branches here, another that exists here, and another that will be higher in the canopy. Now we have two competing branches here that are starting to fork and create what we call a double leader system. And this isn't really desirable in the tree. We actually want a very uniform or a single leader system that goes all the way to the sky, that favors a favorable structure that's able to deal with storms and things like that and high winds. And when you have two double leaders, it makes the tree a little bit more susceptible to wind damage because you have two trunks that are dealing with that weight. So what we've decided to do is we've decided to take out this competing leader here, and because we're actually going to have a more balanced tree in the end by leaving this one that's over here. Also, another good reason why we're going to take this out is because right down here in this crotch union here, we have some what's called occluded bark, and that's where the branches are growing too close together. And this is a bad situation for rot to occur and things like that. An example of a good crotch union here is one right here where we have a nice crotch angle that goes right into the tree and we don't have wood growing together. So this is an example of a good crotch union, and this is a bad and what we call occluded crotch union. Now when it comes to pruning, this here we're going to use a little bit bigger of a saw. It's a little bit bigger than a finger's width, and so it's not really favorable to use with our traditional handy-dandy bypass pruner. So we're actually going to use a pruning saw. And when we're pruning a larger branch like this, we don't want to have the tree encounter or endure more injury than what we are trying to, or we don't want it to deal with more injury than we have to give it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try the 3-cut pruning method here, and it's a little harder to do in the center of a tree, but we're going to make an attempt at it. So the first pruning cut that you make is right on the bottom side where the weight of that tree is going to fall. So we're going to make it right here, and what this does is this avoids the tree from splitting down that branch. So if it happens to fall away uncontrollably, it doesn't rip the bark right off the tree. The next thing that we're going to do, and I'm actually going to cut both branches here, is we're going to cut these both away. So this smaller branch here is light enough where I can hold that as it falls. The next one here, we're going to cut away. Oh, there we go. So that is our second pruning cut. Our third pruning cut here is going to be really critical because this is our finished pruning cut, and we're going to want to prune away from that branch collar. So this is the branch collar here, and this is going to form the callus wood that's going to cover that wound and protect that tree. So this is where we're going to make that final pruning cut here, and I'm going to start on the inside here. I'm going to stabilize the tree, and we've removed the weight of the branch here to avoid any ripping of this bark down the tree. So that was really critical with this 3-step cutting method here. And so we're going to try finish cutting this here to make a very nice finish cut. And there you have it, folks. We have a very nice cut there of callus wood that can form over that wound, and we'll have a great tree, or a great coverage there in the future years. We have a very nice central leader that goes all the way up and down the tree, and we have restored this tree to a very good structure for favorable growth going into the future. Lastly, wound repair. There is no reason to cover this wound with any type of bandage or anything like that. This tree is going to cover this space and repair this just greatly, especially since that we cut this not too far into the branch collar, and we've cut it at an optimal location. So with that, this is Ray Kruze, the ISU Extension Office, ISU Extension and Outreach Office of Dubuque County, and thanks for tuning in.